if I could just finish, you said you referred to a memo that Officer Defina had written when he was ordered in on his day off.
Right.
Well, and you also said there were several memos that had gone back and forth that day, and this was the final one. Well, here's a 4-page memo that maybe you haven't seen, and in it it states, this is written by Officer Defina. He says he was asked about my letter to the editor, and in it he says he has confiscated several knives from students at school. That was what was in my letter to the editor. I have dealt with several incidents involving knives while in the schools. Where it says, this is Officer Defina writing this, where it says, as well as discovering a student that was actually selling knives in school, that one I actually did. Where it says he dealt with fights on the school buses, that one I actually did too. Where it says numerous thefts, that one I did as well. Where it says threatening emails, there weren't so much emails, but rather letters and notes and blogs, which is kind of the same thing, but I've dealt with that too. Where it says confiscated drug paraphernalia, that one we also did. Where it says handle truancy issues within all our schools from Underhill to high school students, I have had truancy issues at all of the schools, but I'm not quite sure about Memorial. That's the letter, that's the memo that isn't getting passed around that he submitted.
Okay, let me just address a couple of things there. You read about the knives that were supposedly getting sold in the school.
No, I didn't read about it.
You brought that up. It
Right.
should be in your right to know request packet that you got. Okay? And if you read that report, it was reported to the police department 10 days after the incident happened. The kid sold the knife to another kid in school. They reported it to us 10 days later. We didn't seize any knife, if I'm going off my independent recollection, and those are in the right to know. So if I get a memo like that, okay, and that comes to me, I would say interpret it the same way you did. That's what happened in the school. Some kid sold a knife to another kid. But if you learn from reading the report that it happened 10 days, it wasn't reported to us till 10 days later, how can we count that as a knife getting sold in the school that we didn't know about? I can't stop that if I don't know about it.
So instead, the report that goes forward is the memo that you're passing out?
Oh, this is what I...
Claiming that there's nothing going on by Officer Defina? Now, this is inaccurate information, and it's very deceitful.
Who's inaccurate?
All right, I got an answer. I hold it right now. Hold it. That's it. I've had enough. I'm telling you right now. I want an internal investigation on this because either this was signed and he lied, or somebody else is lying. You have a copy of this. I want to. We have that memo that she's referring to.
Yeah.
I want the whole thing researched and reported back to this commission.
Who has the memo?
Stepping back from what I just said about that investigation, so that there's no questions of impropriety, Steve, I want county sheriffs to do it.
Understood.
Okay?
Well, I guess my understanding that you requested an investigation regarding the memo and the SRO program now. That's what you
Well,
just
basically,
said.
the wording the chairman used that night when he said that that's what he wanted investigated, that's what was relayed to the sheriff's department. So that's where their focus, their starting point would be.
I was wondering if there was any resolution to the internal investigation on Jay's memo.
I'm not sure which memo you're talking about, but internal investigations are personnel matters, so they would never be discussed or disclosed, no matter what the level is of it.
Well, he brought it up at the last meeting. Well, there was a 4-page memo. We got reduced down to a 1-page memo.
That would be part of the sheriff's department.
That's correct.
Just before you instigated the report by the sheriff's department, you held up the memo from Officer Defina, which was the 4th draft of the Defina memo in response to Maura Olet's letter in the banner. And at that point, you said, we're going to find out who's lying. Somebody's lying here, and we're going to find out. We're going to have an investigation. And it's my understanding that the scope of that investigation didn't include that memo. That's my first question. And if it did we determine what happened with that memo?
I don't know how to answer that right now.
can do is, I don't have it with me tonight, is I have the original letter that was sent to the sheriff's department with what they were asked to do. I can bring that to the next meeting.
Well,
And
I'm sure you've reviewed the report,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
I haven't. I suppose I could write to them and get it. I don't know where it is, but my question is, in reviewing the report, does the report answer that question?
I do not believe on the specific memo. I could be mistaken.
Well, then
I have a
my-
copy of that report, and I will check it out.
My question would be then, shouldn't we follow up on that to answer that question? Because your own words, when you were holding that memo up, was, we're going to find out. We waited, I waited, I got no further questions about it because I thought that there was a process in place that was going to find that answer. And to my knowledge, it hasn't been answered. Obviously, it's an important question to you because you're the one that stated we were going to find out about it. Can we have follow-up on that? Can we find out what happened to that memo?
Absolutely. Give me the original letter,
Thank you.
and just in case I can't find it, give me a copy of the report.
At the last meeting, you told us that you would look into the issue of the fourth Defina memo and who was lying about that. Have you done that?
I still haven't got that. I have not received.
The fourth memo?
I had asked for a copy of it, and I forgot who said they would present me with a
Mr.
copy.
Gagnon, back in, I don't even know how long ago it was, you held that memo up and you said somebody's lying and we're going to find out. The sheriff's report didn't address it. I brought it up last month, you said you were going to address it.
What I said was, I would get a copy of it, and then we would address it, and I don't have a copy of it.
That was published to the, that was handed out in this room and you can't produce a copy of it, and therefore we have another month without any answers. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
as you remember, the commission discussed having the sheriff's department look into it, and the question that was discussed here, and that went to the commission, the question that went to the sheriff's department was this: did any member of the Hooksett Police Department intentionally try to cover up the existence of safe school reports regarding the College School, or attempt to cover up safety issues in the Hooksett Public Schools?
And I believe that addressed the lie.
That was
Comment.
that was the wording from the commission of what the sheriff's department was being asked to investigate.
That was what I asked for last month when I said I had asked for a
Right.
copy of it. Just went to Henry and said it to me. That's why I said I didn't get it.
But if you go back and look at the videotape, it's pretty clear that you said the investigation was going to be based on Jay's memo.
Correct, I do remember saying that.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, how did it come from the memo being investigated to safe school reports?
But that's what everything was based on, was the safe school reports. We were accused of lying on the safe school reports, was the accusation made. If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong at this point, it's going back months.
No. Yes, we can get you.
Going from memory, it was based on two conflicting stories, and we felt that somebody was lying on the safe school reports. We had two opposite ends.
I think you need to look at that memo, the videotape. You'll see that it's pretty clear that what the investigation was going to be on was about Jay's memo.
What was the memo?
Safe school reports.
What was the memo?
Excuse me?
What was the memo?
He had three or four different memos. One was basically,
The ones that we supposedly said to be rewritten 4 different times.
that is
Am I
correct.
correct?
That is correct.
I don't,
If you read the first memo and you read the last memo, you'll see there's two different stories in there.
which we've never read, I don't believe.
I would suggest you read those two.
Either this was signed and he lied, or someone else is lying. Those were the words that were spoken by the chair of the Hooksett Police Commission on April 21st, 2009. The chairman was referring to a memo written by Officer Defina. It seems one way or the other, a Hooksett police officer has lied. So an investigation was started. The problem is, now it seems that that investigation had nothing to do with that memo. On May 19th, I asked about the scope of the investigation, and the chief said, and I quote, "Basically, the wording of the chairman used that night when he said that's what he wanted investigated, that's what was relayed to the sheriff's department. So that is where their focus is, and that's where their starting point should be." June 16th, J.R. Willett asked, "Is there any resolution to the internal investigation regarding the Defina memo?" The chief said, "That would be part of the sheriff's investigation." August 18th, referring to the sheriff's investigation report, I said, "In reviewing the report, does the report answer the question?" I was referring to the lying about the memo. Mr. Gagnon said, "I do not believe on that specific memo." I said, "Obviously it's an important question to you as you're the one that asked it. Can we have follow-up on that?" Mr. Gagnon replied, "Absolutely." September 15th, I said, "At the last meeting, you told us that you would look into the issue of the fourth Defina memo, and who was lying about that. Have you done that?" Mr. Gagnon said he had not received a copy. September 15th, J.R. Willett asked, "I was wondering if you had made a formal request to the sheriff's department." The chief read a letter stating the scope of the investigation, and I quote, "Did any member of the Hooksett Police Department intentionally try to cover up the existence of safe school reports regarding the Colley School or safety issues at the Hooksett School?"
We're done with the Defina questions in the comments.
Excuse me, that's my public input.
And I have a right to halt it. We are done with it. It's an open thing right now.
So
and
we're not done with it.
We are.
This is my public input. Do I not have 5 minutes to speak?
And I have the right to stop it.
If it's a question that's already been answered,
It hasn't been answered. And the chairman said he was going to look into it, and he never has gotten back to us. My question is, how did the letter we heard that went to the sheriff's department describing an investigation about safe school reports, how was that conformed from what the chairperson said that night, that he was going to investigate that memo? Did the chief alter the chairman's order?
is that question on that?
This is not for submission. This is my verbal question, because what the chief read last week was not what Mr. Gagnon said on April 21st when he initiated that investigation. And again, the chief said that that's what he was sending to the sheriff's department. But we learned last month, only last month I learned, that the report had nothing to do with the memo. So my question is, as a citizen, which Hooksett police officer lied about the memo? If we're going to write up people for lying, then we need to get to the bottom of this. And the chairperson said he was going to look into this multiple times.
Well, I can't speak for him, and I don't mean to speak for the chair, but you know what would be helpful? If you do have that question that you want and that you say that he was supposed to get back to you, if you do have it and you can frame it and submit it, I think, we need to make it a point to,
Certainly, I believe it's in the minutes, it's on the videotape. I've asked it, we've asked it, it's never been answered.
I believe the sheriff's report said no one was lying, if I'm correct. Is that not what it said?
I asked you if the sheriff's
I just asked you a question.
I haven't seen the sheriff's report.
Why not? Everybody else has.
I don't know that. You've never presented it here.
It was made public.
I have never seen it. I asked you at a meeting if it referred to the memo. You said it did not. Those were your words. And my question then is, if it does not there need to be another investigation about the memo? That's what you said on April 21st, that someone was lying on that memo. That is a person's character. That's a person that's now been fired for this department, and we never resolved that issue.
Why don't we just provide them with a sheriff's report, and then
Yeah.
we'll go from
And
Well, actually, excuse me, we shouldn't, because I don't believe they should have released it, because it was an internal investigation. Now, they chose to release it, so anybody that wants it, who already doesn't have it, should go talk to the sheriff's department. If you remember in talking with that council, that should not have been released by them. So for us to release it just because they did, doesn't mean if they did it wrong, we shouldn't do it wrong too.
What if it was already released, does it matter at this point?
it becomes,
It's up to you, but-
it becomes a public document, and that's my concern.
My question is very simple. The chairman asked that the sheriff's department investigate the memo. What the chief sent to the sheriff's department was very different. My question is, how did that happen? Did you change your mind, Mr. Gagnon, and instruct the chief to do differently? Or did the chief take it upon himself to change the scope of that investigation? I think that's a serious question that needs to be answered in this department. Any other time when orders aren't followed in this department, there are serious repercussions.